Obviously people are going to be comparing Titanic to Downton Abbey. Are you worried about that at all?
Well, you know, I mean, inevitably they are, because it's kind of a similar period, and Titanic was the event that kicked off Downton in the first place. So I'm sure they will. But for me, the themes are very different. That Downton is an exploration of the class system when it was in its dying years and so on, you know, in the development and so. Whereas this, although the newspapers will say it's about class, it's not. It's about a society facing a disaster so enormous that all those distinctions become rather meaningless. And I think that is the sort of key message of what great danger does to people. I mean, sometimes it's not so great what it does, but you know, what you're really impressed by when you study the Titanic is how well they behaved. I mean, the vast majority of them, all types, all, you know, crew, passengers, everyone behaved with such courage. It, you know, breaks your heart when you read it.
Mm. You mentioned that the Titanic kicked off Downton Abbey. Were you never tempted to do a bit of a crossover with those characters on Titanic?
I wouldn't say I was never tempted, but I knew what would happen, as everyone said it was Downton at Sea, and I thought to actually give them some Crawleys on board would be asking for trouble, so I didn't in the end.
There is such a huge cast of characters, though. Do you have any favourites?
Well, you know, they're all my babies. I have a mother's reluctance to differentiate between her children. Of course, I do have some that I think have come out particularly well. And there's always some things which you didn't stand out in the script form, and then the performance is so good that it sort of jumps it out. And I think we have got some wonderful performances, but that's about as far as I'll go.
You're not going to give any names away?
No names, no pack drill.
We've seen the Titanic filmed so many times before. What makes this version different?
Well, I think it's quite a different story we're telling, to be honest. I mean, the film is a great love story with two big movie stars, and the whole thing is incredibly romantic and fulfilling. I think it's a wonderful film, and is one of the classic love stories of cinema, with the Titanic, in a sense, the background of this love story. But this is completely about the Titanic. It's about the people on board. Who were they? Some real, some not real, but representing types that were, heaven knows, real enough. And we go to every part of the ship, and we get involved with the boilermen and the crew and the officers and the servants of first class and the stewards and stewardesses and the passengers in all three classes and so on. And so it's a kind of attempt to give people an idea of what it was like to be on board that ship.
Why should we be excited about the show? Why should we be tuning in to watch, do you think?
Well, I think the Titanic sinking is one of those events that touches a sort of chord in us. I don't know if it's fear or sorrow or a kind of monumental disaster, you know, which you think of with awe. And I think that's why we are allowed to keep re-examining it and retelling it. And I'm sure this will not be the last by any means.
Why do you think we are still so captivated?
It's come to represent the end of that world. I mean, the First World War was just coming 2 years later, and the extraordinary pride and vanity of the empires that were reigning at that time, and they all thought it could never end. You know, this was sort of the perfect world, we finally reached it. And in fact, it was all about to explode. And somehow, the Titanic carries in its heart that disaster in miniature, really.